Y'all, welcome to the First Tracks podcast, the New Hunters Rendezvous. My name is Victor.
And I'm Zach Khashan. We're two friends that came together through our passion for hunting, fishing, and everything outdoors. Every 2 weeks, we'll bring you another episode and share stories, perspectives, and resources for hunters, anglers, and outdoor enthusiasts of all walks of life.
So whether you're laying your own first tracks or a seasoned lifelong hunter who's just wanting to share their knowledge with our community, grab a cold one and let's get after it. All right, man, welcome. First episode.
Yes,
We're
sir.
finally doing it.
Yeah.
I think it's appropriate. We're having ourselves a little bit of bourbon, and we're joined by
Our special guest, Riley, here. She's a bird dog in training.
Yep. And Zach's emotional dog as well. So,
my emotional support animal.
well, dude, we've been talking about this for a couple of weeks. I mean, it really hasn't been that long, to be honest with you. I think it was kind of just a natural progression of the things we do, right? I mean, we've been talking about doing something in terms of partnering up and maybe shooting some videos and kind of, taking the camera out there with us. But this idea felt like a natural progression into our path, right? So what I would like to do is maybe, for those of our viewers who don't know who you are, who don't know who I am, maybe just give them a little background, how we came together, a little bit about your past, my past in terms of our hunting life. So
yeah, definitely. So Victor and I met at a job that we were both working downtown Atlanta. Didn't really know a whole lot about each other. We worked in two kind of separate divisions of the company. And it was really through like a mutual friend who happened to be my boss at the time and a coworker.
Yeah, coworker at that point. Yeah.
Of Victor, and he kind of introduced us. At first, it was kind of all about like career
just
goals,
work
mentorship, stuff like that. And then I guess kind of like through our journey together, we just kind of started realizing more and more things about each other that we had no idea, right? And so we didn't know that we shared all these common interests.
Right. Or we even lived as close as we did at that time, right? So I think for the most part, like Zach said, it was a very professional, career, what are your aspirations, this and that. And then I think there were little tidbits here and there that were like, oh, this or hunting or fishing, barbecuing or this or that. So we just kind of started unpacking a lot of that, and we discovered that we lived pretty close to each other. And dude, for a while we were just like, oh, we should. And then finally, I think we finally came together and you asked like, hey, let's go to the lake. Let's go do some fishing. So
yeah. And I think that was probably like one of our first outdoor interactions together. Was one day we had just gone out on Lake Lanier.
Yep.
I think it was cold as heck outside.
It was pretty cold. Yep.
Wind was blowing like 25 miles an hour. And
I think that was kind of a clicking point too, right? We kind of realized that neither one of us was like, hey, let's pack it up, let's go. So I think there was some kind of a connection there of like, okay, we kind of feel like we like being out here. We're stupid enough to be out here. And we weren't really catching anything, but we were having a hell of a time getting to know each other. And it just kind of progressed from there. I'll give you credit where credit is due, and my wife. I wasn't much of a freshwater guy, but at some point my wife's like, hey dude, we got to go buy some gear again. Let's get back into it. And Zach just kind of happened to be that catalyst where, he would take us out on his boat. And what I always remember, dude, is he's like, you would always fall into this like almost reverse roles, right? Where it came to fishing, it almost felt like I was hanging out with some guy. Like you just wanted to make sure we were having a good time, that we were, getting into something. And I think through those little moments, we realized that in these areas of the outdoors, we tend to kind of have the same relationship. Like we're all show you something or teach you something or somebody else, and you're the same way. So I think that was kind of also a melding point for us.
Yeah, and it's definitely like a common ground that we share, right? Like, I mean, we both have our niches of kind of like what we know a lot about and what we're really into. And
and we feed off of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome because, you obviously know a lot more about like the meat aspect of it and a lot of the hunting portions. And so we're kind of able to like share that knowledge with each other and really kind of help each other out in our outdoor journey.
I think it's, the way I like to see it is like, what are the areas that I like that maybe that's where I was a little bit further along, right, than you were, or vice versa. So like for me, he alludes to the fact like, the meat part of it, right, is I was always more so drawn to the processing side of the harvest without getting too deep into these things. But these are things that I realized through time that Zach hadn't had the opportunity to dress and butcher end to end his own deer. So those are things that, again, it brought us closer together. And again, I think that's why this podcast is important. So what we're trying to do is really, through this experience is enable our community, right? Yeah. Of people that are starting out people that have a ton of experience or anywhere in between, and deliver, like you said, resources, stories, interviews with people that, that are in different points of their journey, right? And just kind of enable each other to learn, to grow in these areas of hunting, angling, and just anything outdoors. So I think, again, going back to our viewers, I know a little bit about your background, but maybe not everybody does. So what I want to know is, how did Zach get into hunting and fishing and the outdoors in general, right? Is that something you just grew up with? Or how did that come up?
Well, so I had never really been into hunting at all growing up, right? And so I'd always had influences in my life, like my late grandfather. That was kind of how we connected, and we just kind of talked about like all things outdoors, right?
Yeah. Did you ever actually hunt with him? Or?
I never actually did get a chance, because it was kind of like on the decline of the end. And so that was kind of when we started kind of coming together and really having these conversations, right? And so it was always kind of something that stuck with me.
Yeah.
But that was the hunting aspect. But the fishing aspect, I mean, I had grown up with friends, with dads that we would go out, they would take us out fishing like every single week. And I just learned so much, and I just fell in love with being on the water. And I mean,
you can see that, man. Like when, like I said, when we're out there in the water, it's like you transform into like this different person, right? I almost feel guilty. Like I feel like I should be paying you some type of a guide fee or a charter fee, but you just kind of you turn into this whole different person when you're out on the water, and you could see that. But going back to like your grandfather, it sounds like your grandfather kind of seeded, at least that he imprinted a little bit of that desire to explore it at some point.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. And then I think it wasn't really until college that I ended up meeting a couple friends who were into hunting, and they took me hunting, and that was where I harvested my first
What was
deer.
your first? Okay. Deer.
Yeah, it was a doe.
Gotcha.
So that was like one of the first times that we'd gone hunting.
Yeah.
And so
were you like
I was definitely
immediately?
I wasn't necessarily hooked immediately, but I mean, I definitely was like, I want to explore this more. And I was very fortunate to have had that opportunity to where somebody had shown me, hey man, I want to take you hunting, and I want to put you in a deer stand.
That's important, man, right? It's like, I think that's where a lot of the recruitment process fails, right? Is you often get people that, one, are very excited to go out, right? Hey, I want to see how this is done, right? How do you harvest a deer? How do you harvest this, or how do you fish? But sometimes that's where the recruitment process tends to fall short, right? They either link up with somebody that kind of falls short on them, meaning they don't keep up their end of the bargain in terms of taking them out. And there's a lot of value in that. My wife and I tend to, whenever we offer, people the opportunity, like, hey, let's go do this, we feel that it's extremely important to follow through, right? Because that's an opportunity that you have to really bring somebody in one step closer, right? Going out and buying your license, that's one thing. Anybody can go out, as long as you're a legal resident and you're good. But it's that next step. And it sounds like you actually had somebody that was able to get you into that next step, right? Of dropping that doe, seeing it happen, to spark that next step, right? Of, okay, now what?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's a lot of us how we start out with anything, right? It's just kind of somebody introduces you to something or plants that seed in your head, and it's just kind of, it just goes from there.
Yeah, that's cool, man. No, that's cool. So you went from that to kind of give us a sense of like, the trajectory from that to where you're at now. Like, how do you feel now? As, again, we're not experts, right? We're not claiming to be experts. That's the whole purpose of this podcast, right? We're all on a different journey, but give us a sense, like these days, like what are you into? What kind of lay out your yearly, just a high level, fishing, hunting, like what do you get into these days?
So I think it kind of varies year by year, right? And so it's just kind of, what's going on that year, right? So do I have time to get out in the woods, or do I have time to go fishing? And so I think a lot of us get so busy with life that sometimes just life gets in the way and you don't get to do the things that you love. But this year, for example, I was super big into, like, I wanted to be in the woods every single weekend, every chance that I could get.
Yeah. Whereas, this was a year, man. We spent we spent a lot of time out there. Like we put in some work. Both of us put in some, and supporting each other, right? And it's days were like, hey man, I dropped something, and there comes Zach, 9:30 at night, helping us, try to trail to find the blood trail. But Yeah, I think between both of us this year, we definitely spent more time in the deer woods. And I don't know if that was just kind of like, by design. I know I got some opportunities, but, for you, what was driving that what was fueling that, like, just I want more time in the deer woods this year? What was it?
I don't know.
Or last year, I should say.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know what it was that kept drawing me to it, but I mean, I was just so obsessed with, like, I just want to be in the woods. I just need to unwind and relax. So
we had a good new experience together this year in the woods.
We did, yeah.
We'll get into that another time, but Zach over here was lucky enough to draw on a quota hunt in one of the Lanier Island hunts, that was an experience all on its own. I had a blast, dude, supporting you on that hunt. It was definitely a new way to hunt for me. And again, we'll get into all those details. And it paid off, right? I think
it did.
This year, at least for me, I don't know what your personal goal was. I believe you said you wanted at least 3 or 4 this year. For me, the same. And I think the time we spent out there, the investment this past year, it yielded, good results. So goes to show, right? That
definitely, it really did pay off. So Victor, tell me a little bit about, like, kind of where you came from and your upbringing and just kind of how you got into it, right?
Yeah. Oh man, sometimes I kind of dread talking about it because I came into it late in life, dude. I'm 40 years old now, but ultimately, man, I grew up in South Texas. That's where I was raised, and by many outdoors standards, South Texas, the Rio Grande Valley, that kind of region is a sportsman's paradise, right? So I should have been able to take advantage of all those resources, but I didn't grow up in a hunting family, I had all these little micro, I like to call them micro glimpses of hunting where, my uncle in Mexico, let's say, he would take us out dove hunting with a 22, right?
Yeah.
Off Mesquite. So it wasn't conventional, upland type hunting. Or we would go hunt rabbits, with a 22 off the back of his Ranger. So I had micro glimpses of hunting, not big game hunting, I think more of small game hunting. And honestly, man, like, we hear the stories, and actually my grandfather, when he was still alive, we used to hear the stories of him and his brother. They used to hunt, they used to go hunting for cats, right? For, what do you call them? Bobcats, yeah. For small type cats on horseback, right, in Mexico. So
how cool is that?
They were the real deal, dude. Like him and his brother, repeater rifles on horseback up in the mountains of Nuevo León. So I think that's in the blood, right? I just like to say it kind of skipped a generation with my mom. My dad wasn't a hunter. I think my brothers had some opportunities through friends and stuff, but I was always I was a young pup, so I was never brought along. I moved to Georgia 2005, and it probably wasn't until, man, I want to say, let's just say 2011 or 12 when I just kind of, the light bulb moment, and I said, something's pulling me. Like, I don't know what it was. I didn't have any friends around me. Dude, it was foreign. Like, I would go to work and like try to, how you try to like fish for who can possibly zero. Like, people would look at me like I was talking a different language, which is kind of weird, in Georgia. But the setting was just not conducive. So I started doing research. I realized that I had to get hunter's education. That was the first step. And then I realized I needed a license. Now what? Right? So honestly, I want to say the first 3 years, it was just absolute nothing but walking in the woods with zero success. And that was on me, right? But the first 3 hunted WMA. I realized why people always dog on WMA. My feelings have changed on that, by the way, since. But yeah, dude, it was like 3 or 4 years of zero luck. I saw critters, deers here and there, but it wasn't the experience that you would see in magazines and this and that. And I say magazines because at that time it was still a popular medium, but.
So with that being said, like, I mean, you experienced like getting skunked for, a couple different years, right?
At least
so like,
3,
what made
4
you
years.
stick with it? What really made you kind of want to like
Dude,
continue your pursuit?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I think for me, I want to almost say that it was kind of like you, right? Where it was almost this innate desire. Like, I felt like this is a part of what I need to do. I don't know how to describe it, but I felt like as an individual, this is ingrained in me. I don't know where it came from. Again, it could have been, something far down the line, but I just had this, let's just call it a primitive desire, to get out there and harvest my own, fare. And then, but I think year after year, because it's tough, dude. Like when you're getting skunked, it's not like a couple of weeks or months. It's, you got to wait another full year to go do this again. And hopefully you're doing something different or learn something different. And then I think for like a year or two, I kind of gave up on the WMA. I found some private opportunities. That's when I kind of started linking up with one or two dudes that were real legit Georgia boy hunters. And they kind of gave me some tips. They introduced me into some private clubs, but still no success. So, I just kept at it, man. I don't know. College just, maybe a smarter guy would have yielded, but I just like carried on. And
I bet now you're gladder than ever that you stuck with it. And it's really kind of something that plays a big part in your life, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. I mean, I think, this year's been a successful, last year, I should say. The 2023-24 season was probably my most successful season. And I feel like, between my wife and I, because she gets to kind of carry some of the burden of my lessons learned, right? She gets to hear about it. But I've learned a lot, man. And I think now I feel more equipped than ever. Our opportunities are better, right? We've interacted with more people, so we have access to a couple of more things. But the desire's still the same. So yeah, that's kind of how I came into it.
Yeah.
But I know, again, we're coming off of deer season, right? I think we're kind of coming off of that. Again, hammering it hard. I remember the last day I was out there, I was like, I want this to be over, but at the same time, I want to get something. Yeah. Sure enough, 30 minutes, before last light, we got into something. But now we're shifting gears, right? Now we're getting into what?
Turkey season.
Turkey
it's coming
season,
up, man.
Turkey
it's coming
season.
up. It's what, 15 days from now?
I just opened the new diaphragms yesterday. We were at your place, and I'm like, I look at him, and it's like, damn it, he's a step ahead again.
Yeah.
So it's like having to catch up. So he's doing something right, guys, because this is his Tom. So I wish I could claim this, but that's this guy. So, if I see diaphragms laying on his countertop, I'm like, all right, well, I got to try something. So yeah, this is coming up, man. So was this your first one, or what's the deal with this guy?
That was my second turkey that I ever killed.
All right.
And so I'm really looking forward to it this year. It's what public opens up when April 6th.
Public April 6th and private March 30th.
Yeah, Easter weekend.
New regulation changes, or did those go in last year or this year? I can't remember, but
I think they went in last year too.
Yeah. So if y'all aren't up on this yet, go to the Georgia DNR page. They have some fantastic resources on some of the research that's been going on in terms of the turkey population. Read a cool article. We're going to post it on the show notes. I'm not going to go into detail here, but the gist of it, the net is turkey population is going down, not just here in Georgia, but across the Southeast. And I was actually kind of surprised, man. Like, I was kind of bummed because it was like, the headline or the tagline was, we're past the good old days of turkey hunting, right? I'm like,
yeah,
I just started 10 years ago. So, and I've yet to be successful with turkey. So again, I started a little bit later, but hoping to learn some lessons. The data out there on the turkey population is pretty interesting. Predation, surprise, surprise, being one of the most, let's just say, common, right, reasons for the decline, but obviously development, right, across the 5 regions in Georgia, and hunters,
Yeah.
But what I would say is, as a conscious, right, participant in this fantastic system that we get to participate here in the U.S., right, is go take the surveys, guys. If you don't know about the surveys the DNR puts out yet, don't worry, we'll get into that in other episodes. But for those of you who are actively participating, go take the surveys. That data is very important, right, for forecasting, for understanding what's happening, to the population.
Yeah, and I mean, we're the biggest catalyst for conservation, right? I mean, us as hunters, you guys.
Your dollars, everything. We're stewards. We're primary stewards of the resources. And I'll be honest with you, man, I want to get myself one of those. So the moment I get mine, I'm sorry to say, but that one's going to probably go to that end over there, or you're going to have to take it back home. But hey, Riley, welcome back. Riley's wearing a little bodysuit. She just got spayed, so she's hanging out with Zach here tonight. But So are you ready, man? Like what's going on? Like what do you got going on in terms of preparation?
In terms of preparation, I mean, we're just kind of really just setting up blinds and trying to get ready for the season.
We saw some good action out there this past year on cameras, dude. I've personally never seen that many flock of birds in that area. I mean, you saw some of those videos.
It was impressive.
So when I'm looking at this data, I'm like, okay, I get it, but hopefully they're there when we're ready to, pull the trigger.
Yeah, and if they're not, we're going to be doing a whole lot of riding around.
That's right.
Riding around in Georgia.
That's right.
I think one thing that I'd really like to do more of this year is kind of get into the public land hunting aspect of it, right? Because we have so many resources here in our backyard.
It's crazy. You go 5-10 minutes somewhere, there's a body of water, right? Whether it's a lake, river, pond. We're 25 minutes away from Dawson Forest, which is this expansive WMA. Beautiful place. So definitely going to be taking more advantage of that. I think now that I'm into mobile hunting, thanks to you again, that's probably going to be another point of exploration for us for deer season. But yeah, man. So I think for our first episode, we really wanted to kind of come together, introduce ourselves, give a little bit about what this is going to be, what we hope to get out of it for us, for the community. And then we're working on a couple of other things. And as Zach said earlier, our plan is to deliver a podcast every 2 weeks. Hopefully we'll have some people that we'll interview, give different perspectives. Riley may or may not join us. Anything else, man, you want to add?
No, I mean, so really kind of we're looking to you guys for feedback as far as what do you want to hear? Do you guys want it to be like more Q&A based? Or do you want to do interviews and just kind of really trying to understand
review, things like that?
Yeah. I mean, there's so many different avenues that I think are...
Yeah, absolutely. We also have a couple of other things in the works. We're not going to drop that just yet. I think by the time this episode drops, the first episode, we're already going to be in the thick of it with turkey season. So hopefully one of us will have some bragging rights by then. But until then, what we do want is to ask for you guys to like and subscribe. Obviously, that's going to help us. That's going to help the channel. That's going to help build the community as we grow this a little bit more. And like Zach said, any feedback, let us know, right? We want to make sure that this is something that is engaging, informative, and really fun for everybody, right?
Yeah, and we definitely want it to be something that's fruitful for everybody.
So in the meantime, go lay your first tracks. This has been Victor.
I'm Zach.
Thank you guys, and let's go ahead and get after it.